All must die, but 'tis enough that my child live. It is believed that those words were the last that were spoken by Pocahontas as she lay on her deathbed in Gravesend, Kent, March 1617. Pocahontas was born around the year 1595. She was the daughter of the powerful chief Powhatan, ruler of the Powhatan tribal nation. She is a folk icon, and her life has been immortalized in literature, art, music and film, one of the most famous being Disney's animated classic, Pocahontas. Pocahontas was a brave soul. She helped keep peace and bring together two peoples. But to understand her life story, we must turn back the clocks of time and venture into the distant past. This is the story of Pocahontas, and one of my family connections to one of history's most endearing characters. We are cousins by marriage, distant in-laws, and although the connection is by far a distant one, it is still a bright star that glares out from the very pages of our family history. At birth, Pocahontas was named Amanute and went by the name Matahaka. Her namesake Pocahontas was supposedly a nickname she earned. It means playful one, because of her happy, inquisitive nature. Even though Pocahontas was the daughter of Chief Powhatan and had more luxuries than many of her peers, she still had to learn so-called woman's work, such as farming, cooking, building a house, making clothes, and tanning hides. The first English settlers arrived in Jamestown Colony in May 1607. That winter, Pocahontas met John Smith. It is reported that she saved his life from an Indian warrior by placing her head on his, preventing an injury that would have undoubtedly have killed him. The event was a good sign, and although relations were strained, she certainly did help strengthen relationships between the colonists and the tribal nation. It was not the last time either that she endeavoured to help and protect. She occasionally brought the hungry settlers food and helped successfully negotiate the release of Powhatan prisoners in 1608. By 1609, drought, starvation and disease had ravaged the colonists, and they became increasingly dependent on the Powhatan to survive. Desperate and dying, they threatened to burn Powhatan towns for food. So Chief Powhatan suggested a barter with Captain Smith. When negotiations collapsed, the chief supposedly planned an ambush and Smith's execution. But Pocahontas warned Smith of her father's plans and saved his life again. Soon after, Smith was injured and returned to England. In 1610, it is thought that Pocahontas married an Indian named Kokahum. Of course, if love existed between Smith and Pocahontas, it was without avail, as she solemnly believed he had died, or at least this is what she was told. Without John Smith, life was much harder between both nations. In 1613, Pocahontas was lured onto the English ship of Captain Samuel R. Gall and kidnapped during the First Anglo-Powhatan War. Pocahontas' imprisonment was used as a way to force Chief Powhatan to release English prisoners, return stolen weapons, and send the colonists food. Much to Pocahontas' dismay, her father only sent half the ransom and left her imprisoned. During her captivity, Pocahontas lived in the settlement of Henricus under the care of a minister. Here she learned about Christianity, English culture, and the English language. Pocahontas converted to Christianity and was baptized and given the name Rebecca. It was during these years that she met John Rolfe, a widower and tobacco planter. The couple decided to marry, likely for both love and political reasons, although the decision wasn't an easy one for the staunchly Christian Rolfe until Pocahontas converted. They sent word to Chief Powhatan that they wanted to marry. He consented, as did the Virginia governor. It's unclear what happened to Pocahontas' first husband, but divorce was allowed in Powhatan culture. Pocahontas married Rolfe in April 1614. The match was considered an important step towards re-establishing positive relations between the colonists and the Indians. Indeed, the marriage brought a season of peace to the region. In 1616, Governor Sir Thomas Dale sailed to England to rally financial support for the Virginia Company. The company also wanted to prove that they had met their goal of converting Native Americans to Christianity, so Rolfe, Pocahontas, their infant son Thomas, born in 1615, and a dozen Powhatan Indians accompanied Dale on the trip. In London, Pocahontas was revered as a princess and referred to as Lady Rebecca Wolfe. She attended plays and balls and was even presented to the royal family. Whilst in London, Pocahontas encountered Captain Smith, whom she thought was dead. She was overcome with emotion upon seeing him alive and called him father. She also reportedly chastised him for his treatment of Chief Powhatan and her people. In March 1617, Pocahontas, her husband and son set sail for Virginia, but they had hardly made progress when she became gravely ill and was taken ashore at Gravesend, England. It's uncertain what disease struck her down. Some speculate it was tuberculosis, pneumonia, dysentery or smallpox. Others believed she was poisoned. According to Rolfe, Pocahontas said on her deathbed, "All must die, but 'tis enough that my child live." Pocahontas was buried at St. George's Church in Gravesend on March 21st, 1617. Rolfe returned to Virginia, but her son Thomas remained with relatives in England. Thomas Rolfe's eldest daughter, Anna Rolfe, granddaughter of Pocahontas, born in 1633, became a ward of Anthony Rolfe of Tuttington and spent her childhood with his daughter Hannah Rolfe, who would later become a wife of my third cousin, Sir Thomas Lee. As for Thomas Rolfe, he returned to Virginia almost 2 decades later at age 20, leaving Hannah behind. he went to claim inheritances from his father and grandfather and became a successful gentleman tobacco farmer in his own right. Chief Powhatan was devastated upon learning of his daughter's death. He died about a year later, and relations between the Powhatan and Virginia colonists declined rapidly. Much of Pocahontas' life has been romanticized and sensationalized in movies and in books, but written accounts and Native American oral history show she lived a brief yet significant life. She was instrumental to maintaining relations between her father and the Jamestown colonists, and is believed to be the first Powhatan Indian to convert to Christianity. She is remembered as a courageous, strong woman who left an indelible impression on colonial America. Her memory, her life story will live forever.